that older women tend to have children with Down syndrome than younger women.
Right. Okay.
So women above age 40 giving birth, the tendency of having children with Down syndrome is higher with them.
With them, okay. Yes, so age could be a factor.
Exactly, sort of a factor.
Now let's talk about how does one know that a baby has Down syndrome? Say you're a new mom, you just gave birth recently. How can you tell? How do you know that this baby has Down syndrome?
Okay, thank you very much. Even now, before the child is born, it can actually be detected. In the past,
so during pregnancy,
it can be detected.
Right.
In the past, it is until the child is born, is given birth to, and there are certain physical features that will be seen in the child that will make, just mere looking at the child, you will know that this child has Down syndrome, because there are physical features attached to it. Okay. Unlike some other forms of disorders that the child looks like a neurotypical child. But for a child with Down syndrome...
When you say neuro, sorry to cut you there, you said neurotypical. What does that mean?
Break it down. For example, when we're talking about some conditions or disorders like autism spectrum disorders. Okay. Like autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder. And for children that have autism, they look like any other child. So a child without Down syndrome, a child without autism is a neurotypical child. Okay. A child without that disability. That's okay. So for a child with Down syndrome, you know the moment the child is born, because there are some physical features on the face of the child, the body generally, that would make the mother know, or the doctors or the physician know that this child has Down syndrome.
That's at birth.
Exactly, that is at birth.
How about during pregnancy? Can it be detected?
Sure. In the past, it was a little bit challenging detecting child with Down syndrome, but today it's easy. During the first trimester of the mother's pregnancy, the placenta, the cell from the placenta can be taken and be tested. So with that one, the test can actually show if the child has Down syndrome. That is one. Also, the amniotic fluid, a sample of it can be taken, and then it will also show that the child has Down syndrome. It will show in the gene of the child. Also, ultrasound will show maybe at the third trimester, where the measurements will be taken of all the body parts of the child, and when there's excessive folds of flesh at the back of the neck of the child, and the accumulation of fluids there, then that is a red flag to show that such a child has. And even while the child is still in the womb, DNA tests can be conducted to determine the gene of the child if the child has Down syndrome.
Okay, so it can be detected during pregnancy, even after birth, one can tell. Let's talk about treatment, or do I say correction here? Is it reversible, so to speak? Can it be corrected? What I mean by that is this child has been diagnosed to have Down syndrome. Is there anything medically possible such that the child can be reversed not to have Down syndrome? Is it possible?
That is a bit hard. It is not possible because it's a lifelong disability, though can be managed.
Okay, now let's go to management. How do you manage a child who has Down syndrome such that they can live up to their full potential?
Okay, let's start from when the child is given birth to, and then it is noticed that the child has Down syndrome.
Right.
Then the family, number one, the first thing that happens for any child with disability when the child is given birth to and it is detected is shock on the part of the parents, especially the mom. Probably she wasn't expecting, nobody expects to have a child with disability anyway. So seeing a child with Down syndrome, the first thing is shock. So at that point, the mother herself needs to be mentally stable. So we have to put into consideration the mental health of the mother, of the parent, mother in particular, because it is when the mother is stable that we can talk about the child living a full functional life. So at that point, the mother needs a kind of support. So when the child gets when the mother gets this kind of support, she comes to accept. That is the level of acceptance. So when she has accepted, then the support will come from probably older women, older parents that have these children, support groups, and then organizations that have that cater for children with that kind of challenges. And so when that one is on, the mother is prepared for the task ahead. So the mother starts from working closely with her pediatrician to determine the health of the child, because some children with, quite a number of them, children with Down syndrome, it comes with some other health challenges, like congenital heart diseases, like hole in the heart, like strabismus, which is eye deviation, like
let me just pause you there. When you said high division,
yes,
okay, what does that mean?
Yes, sometimes their eye, medically it's a strabismus, they have the eyeballs, yes, they have I don't know how to.
The visual impediment.
Sometimes they have visual impairment, but sometimes they have this eye deviation and all that. These are the things the mother has to know, all these stages, all these things that are likely to happen to the child, and so she checks thoroughly. If the child actually has a congenital heart disease, definitely the child has to go through corrective surgery. And then the child is either done here or the child is flown abroad for the corrective surgery. Coming back post-surgery, attention is needed and all that. And then the mother will be prepared that the developmental milestone of the child might not be age appropriate, because most children with Down syndrome, their chronological age is a bit different from their developmental age. So at age 2, a child with Down syndrome might not be walking. Not all of them anyway, but it is common. So the mother must not be, she shouldn't be perplexed, or the parents, let me say, because I'm saying mother because it concerns them more.
Much more,
because we've seen families where the father will walk away as soon as he realizes that the mother has a child with disability, especially with Down syndrome and all that. So they should be prepared for this, that the developmental milestone of the child might be delayed. It might not be age appropriate, and so she keeps on doing the right thing, physiotherapy, occupational therapy to support the child. At last the child will talk. Then speech might be delayed. Speech might be delayed. So at this early, because early intervention is key. At that early stage, she starts with a speech and language therapy for the child, because sometimes there is no speech clarity when they talk and all that. Suppose speech and language therapy, we put things in place on time, and then they start introducing the child to early educational pre-academic skills and all that. It might be very slow.
I'm going to go in detail into what you talked about in terms of therapies the child can get. But you mentioned, I saw a report actually that 50%, of children with Down syndrome usually have heart disease. You also mentioned just now they also have a visual impairment. I'm thinking about, it's very, it takes a lot of funds. How easy do you have access to funds, or parents who have children with Down syndrome? How do they cope? You are in charge of such children. How easy do they have funds to take care of the heart surgery, to go for surgery for the eyes, all of these things? That sound very capital intensive.
You're very correct. As Down Syndrome Foundation Nigeria, we are positioned to stand in between these families and the society. And the little we can do, we are an NGO, we do appeal, we do letters, we ask for funds, for support from organizations, foreign organizations, our partners and all that, to support those that we can support for those trips abroad, because currently between last year and this year we have sent about 11 babies to India for correct. As we speak, we have a baby there in India now that we have sent for corrective. So it now depends on how we are able to source for these funds, how we are able to get enough funds to cater, because we have lists of families on our waiting list that they have these children, but funds, it's not available. But for those that don't have a hole in the heart, there are some other things we can do to support them. Like I told you, we have support programs for them. There are some places in this Nigeria, even in this Lagos, where they can go, like this adolescent center, Oshodi, they go there, they get their therapies at a very cheaper rate when the babies are still young, like age 1, 2, 3, when they are yet to walk and all that. They do this for them. We do referral because at our center, we don't take children that are not able to, that are unable to take care of themselves. So from age 10 and above, because it's respite, we do a boarding system. So we want a child to have mastered the self-help skills and all that before coming into the center. But before this age, when the parents are having challenges, we recommend they get, especially with mobility, because most children with Down syndrome have low muscle tone, and this low muscle tone might affect their mobility, their bones, the muscles. So walking might be a bit difficult. So we've been referring them to get occupational therapists, physiotherapists to work with them. At a cheaper rate, they can do that one. But for those with heart diseases, we sponsor them when we get enough funds to do that.
Okay, a good time to announce it's 32 minutes past 12 in the city of Lagos. The program is Health Focus. My name is Adibola Adejuba. The station is Unilag 103.1 FM. And yesterday, my focus is on understanding Down syndrome. My guest is Aanu Senbanjo, who is also a special education graduate from the Federal College of Education, Oyo, and has a master's degree in educational psychology from the University of Lagos. Currently, she's the administrator of Down Syndrome Foundation, where children and young adults with Down syndrome and other related intellectual disabilities are being cared for. Let's talk about therapies available. What are the therapies available for these children? You mentioned occupational therapy, you mentioned speech therapy. Tell me about it in detail. Okay. How do you take the child through all of these therapies, and what are the intricacies of these therapies, such that we can maximize the potential of these children? I know they have a condition, but I believe, like you mentioned, early intervention, exposure, trainings, therapies can make them, live to a great extent, beyond what they should. So tell me about the therapies available, and then what are the characteristics of these therapies available for these children?
Okay, thank you very much. Beyond therapies, there are some other things we combine to give them a kind of holistic approach of learning or of teaching. With therapies, speech and language therapy is a very important one that shouldn't be left out.
Okay.
Because quite a number of persons with Down syndrome, if the speech is not delayed, the speech is not clear enough.
Okay.
So, and when the speech is not clear, someone outside that space might not actually understand what is being said.
Right.
So with speech and language therapy, it has to be the intensive type that we have to do with some oral motor exercises and all that will put them through. Persons with Down syndrome, they have sometimes protruded tongue, and then the tongue might be relatively large, and then they have inabilities of articulating some sounds like the and then there are some activities they have to do to make this tongue flexible so that they'll be able to articulate these words properly.
Right.
So that one will be there. Then sound drills will be there.
Okay.
Word drills will be there for them to have proper articulation of words and sound. Beyond just speech or labeling of objects, articulation and all that, connected speech, and when we're talking about receptive language, two-way communication skills, understanding and all that. So that one too is there. You engage them in functional communication, exchange of words, receptive language, send them on simple errands for them to show the level of understanding and all that. So that one is part of the speech and language therapy that is being done. Also, the occupational therapy, which I've talked about, that has to do with their system, their mobility, their gait, their fitness. This one goes alongside with the physiotherapy too.
Okay.
So especially for those that have mobility issues and all that, then we do physical therapy because they have tendency of being obese. And so we do physical therapy. We get stationary bikes for them to do. We do physical exercises regularly to make them shed weight and keep fit. So that one is also there. Then hydrotherapy, that has to do with swimming Swimming is also part of exercise and all that. Then beyond all these therapies are some other things that they are engaged in. Like I told you, they do a lot of academic skills. These academic skills, it's not done the way it is being done in regular schools. There are specialized devices that are being used, assistive devices that are being used to teach them, to make them understand. Like some of them are audiovisual learners, they don't learn in abstracts. So all these things are put together to ensure they understand the concept. Though they might not learn at the same pace children without Down syndrome are learning. So that is it. And then at a point, learning might seem not to be taking place, especially those that are just coming into intervention program, maybe as teenagers, as young adults that have never been exposed to anything. Basically, it's not always easy putting them through pre-academics and academic skills, and so we have a like vocational center for them to be trained. We expose them to different vocations, and so we look at the one that interests them the most, that they are so open to, and we start to train them and drill them in that. Beyond that, we have partners with some organizations like Down Syndrome International, like Site Savers, that are working with us on inclusion works projects on employability for persons with disability generally, but particular attention to intellectual disabilities.
Okay, let me talk generally here. Apart from what you're doing, I want to look at Down syndrome, you know, in the bigger spectrum in Nigeria. What is the awareness like in Nigeria in terms of sensitizing or educating parents or the general public about Down syndrome, such that we can get to a level of awareness and then acceptance? I give you a case in point. For instance, dyslexia. A report shows that, you know, close to 50% of Nigerian school teachers don't understand what dyslexia means. Now, if they don't understand what dyslexia is all about, how can they be informed such that they can impact knowledge in these children who have dyslexia? So in terms of Down syndrome, what's the awareness like? What's the sensitization? How do you sensitize people? What's the level of sensitization available to parents out there, to the general public out there, to understand what this is, so they know that, okay, this is a particular condition and this is how you can manage it?
Thank you. At Down Syndrome Foundation Nigeria, we are doing our best to create awareness, though I can say it is quite unfortunate that it's like our voice is not being heard, because few organizations have interest in creating awareness about Down syndrome. You know, disability generally, people talk about it, but Down syndrome itself, very few organizations in Nigeria, in Lagos and all that. But from our end, like this, every 21st of March every year is World Down Syndrome Day.
Yes.
And on this day, we partner with the United Nations Information Center. We have programs to create awareness. Also, the month of October is the month of awareness for Down syndrome, which we usually do charity work. We do free medical outreach. We do seminars for parents out there. Not only our parents, generally we partner with
how about hospitals?
We partner with hospitals like
antenatal programs,
and then with media houses like Wale Adenoga Production. They are part of us. They usually take our things, NTA and all that ones. So all these people, we engage them to further create awareness about Down syndrome during the 2 periods of the year, and to an extent with our charity works and all that. To an extent, some people, as a matter of fact, we go as far as using indigenous languages to create awareness, going into the marketplaces, because these are the places where people actually that cannot read, that don't have access to internet facility, can actually get to know about what we are talking about. So this is what we have been doing to create awareness. And also we partner with some stakeholders from the government, Lagos State Office of Disability Affairs, to further create awareness, so that we can get down to the grassroots level, people that don't have access to it, and gradually we're moving.
All right. Now, Aanu, you are the administrator of Down Syndrome Foundation Nigeria, and I want to believe you've seen a lot over the years. Let's talk about some of the misconceptions you have had as regards children that have, or people who have Down syndrome. Tell us about it.
Yes, for a layman, when they see someone with Down syndrome, the first thing that comes into my mind that this person is daft, this person is dumb, this person is stupid, this person can't make anything out of. That is the first impression that comes into their mind. And so we are trying to bring this thing to disabuse their mind about this, that it is not true. Persons with Down syndrome can actually do beyond this. For example, we have a group of self-advocates, young adults with Down syndrome at the center that we have been grooming for years now, for them to know their rights. So they will come to you, they will tell you, I have the right to life, I have the right to communicate, I have the right to marry, I have the right to marry, I have the right to vote. The last national election that was conducted, some of them voted, and then we bring them, to feel accepted, to be included in the society, because we are clamoring for inclusive society, and that's exactly what we're doing, telling the laymen around so that they can have that notion they have, to let them know that it's actually wrong.
Okay, you mentioned, inclusivity, a way to include them in our society, integrate them in our society, such that they can take part, take active part in our society. A number of times we see them always laughing, and then we misinterpret it to be that they're always cheerful. So people, readily dismiss how they feel, or just, do make hurtful remarks to them. Tell me about how we can relate with these people such that we don't hurt their feelings, because a number of times people tend to overlook them or dismiss them or say nasty things to them, as just thinking that they won't hear what I've said. I mean, they can't reason, it won't get to them, but they actually do get to them. Tell us about how we can better relate with them such that they feel loved.
If we're talking about persons with Down syndrome, out of all the other disabilities that I have known, they are the most emotional.
Right.
That is why they show love. They are they have well-developed social skills. That's why they see you, they hug, they smile, they do all this. Despite that, they have their own feelings. They feel hurt when they are left unattended, or when they're stigmatized. They feel so hurt, they can go emotional about that. So the only way to make them feel they're part of us is to show love, to them, is to let them know they are important, hear them out, no matter what they want to say, try and hear them out, and then you can actually dialogue with them, and you make very good points from what they're saying, so that it is when people don't get close to them and they feel from afar seeing them that these are the kind of people they cannot relate to, that is when they have that. But when you relate with them and you engage them in a conversation, then you know that they have stuff out there and they have much they can offer the society.
Right. Okay, so show love to them. You can have a conversation with them, have a dialogue with them. Don't say nasty or hurtful things to them, because they also do have feelings and emotions, just like every other person. Let me talk about the challenges of parents or guardians or school owners, so to speak, who are raising children with Down syndrome. Let me talk about specifically now parents. Tell me about the challenges that could come along with raising a child who has Down syndrome.
Well, parents of children with Down syndrome are faced with a lot of challenges. Not only children with Down syndrome, children with disabilities generally.
Right.
And so parents of children with disabilities, Down syndrome or no Down syndrome, they're faced with these challenges. So they begin to have these challenges when they see children that are given birth to the same time they had a child with Down syndrome, and they begin to compare.
Right.
So they get worked up sometimes. Also, when they see the siblings of the child excelling in a way, and their expectation is that at this age your brother was doing this, at this age your sister was doing this, why is it that you're not? The expectation the parents, they tend to overrate. The expectation is always too high.
Not understanding that this child has a condition.
Exactly.
So they have delayed milestones against the regular children.
That is it. So that is why we try as much as possible to work on the parents. Right. To work on them, to make them accept these children and follow up with them as they develop.
At their own pace.
Exactly. That is one. Another constraint is the financial constraints.
Yes.
Especially when the child has congenital challenges, some developmental ailments attached to Down syndrome, how to...
That's a visual impairment and the heart condition.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. That heart, hole in the heart is the major thing that disturbs them the most. And so raising funds, sourcing for funds to do the corrective surgery, it makes them sad, it affects them a lot. So that is another challenge. Then the psychological effect, the stigma, it's another thing. The child being marginalized. Sometimes they don't want to take the child out, except for those that we have talked to, and they have come to accept the child. That come rain, come shine, come anything, I'm taking this child, I'm going to showcase my child and all that. Some others, they still live in denial. They lock the child up in the house. They don't take the child out when they're going out. So these are some of the challenges parents actually face.
Let me dwell a bit more on the last part about stigmatization. I tell you something, I know of a parent, a man in particular, who has a child, and the child has a condition, so to speak. So one day I went visiting, and then I saw the child just right there in the house. The child is always locked up. I never knew he had such a child. So the child is always indoors. How do parents or guardians come to that level of acceptance such that they can allow those children at least see the sunlight, not locked in for 24 hours? How do they come to that point of accepting this child, ignoring the stigma, and then allowing these children? Because I do believe that the more you expose those children, the better you give their potential to function. So how do they come to the point of acceptance and then allowing those children go out and mingle and play and have a bit of fresh air out there?
Well, I can understand to an extent from their own angle. Sometimes they might not want to release the children to go out and mingle because they cannot defend themselves, as they might be bullied out there. If there's nobody, family members with them to stand up for them and speak for them, they might be bullied. Not that they are usually bullied out there. So parents might not want the child bullied, talked to, even they might go physical with them, hit them and all that. So they might not want that. And since maybe there is no sibling to go with them to go and play and all that. So that is why some of them at the foundation, they prefer to bring them to the foundation, where we groom them.
Okay, I was going to go there. I was going to ask you that. So where is the fine balance of not locking them in and also not exposing them to being bullied? I was going to go there. So where do we strike a balance such that they are not caged in like prisoners, and also we don't expose them to being bullied out there? Go there. Go ahead, please.
So for some of them that are with us at the foundation, we take them out.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, sometimes we deliberately take them out strolling to go and use the ATM, because for young adults among them, we opened bank accounts for them.
Okay.
They have their ATM cards, even though the parents receive alerts.
Okay, good.
So we take them out to go and use the ATM machine, take them to the banks, take them to parks, we go shopping, go to malls around, take them. The staff, they don't care. We have been trained, we are professionals. So whoever steers, let the person steer. We don't mind.
Okay, so if I'm to paraphrase your response, it will be aligning them in a social support system.
Exactly.
For people like them.
Sure.
Okay, great. And the way to do that is by registering them in the foundation.
Exactly.
Okay, go ahead, please.
At the foundation, we ensure caregivers go out with them each time they are going out. Even when they go to church, caregivers are always with them. So nobody comes to bully them or to do anything. Most of the time it is difficult for the families to do this for them, because the father will say, I'm going to work, the mother will say, I'm going to work weekends, I need to rest.
Or even the stigma factor could be a reason.
Yes, some parents are usually ashamed to take them out because of the tears and all that, but we don't mind. We take them out ourselves. We make them have fun. We go to parks, we go for different events. If a staff is getting married or something,
they go for such functions.
Yes, they attend such functions, and it's fun for them.
All right, let me talk about how can we as a country, we've talked about people showing love to this children that has this condition. Let's talk about how can we create an enabling environment for them. from the government to the schools, generally, how do you think we can create an enabling environment for people or children who has Down syndrome?
Yes, thank you. This is a work in progress.
Right.
Like from the foundation, we have met with some policy makers. We are trying to, there's Lagos State Disability Law, and there's the African Disability Protocol. Then the one nationwide was adopted two years ago. That talks about their rights, the rights of persons with disability. So if their rights in terms of education, inclusion, employment, if it is because when they are given employment too, they have an enabling environment and all that. If their quota, they have a particular percentage of them being employed in workplaces, that will give them a better life. And more importantly, if their government is trying in a way, but we still want to implore them to do more, especially for families that are indigent families that they don't have enough funds for corrective surgeries for their children. This is something that we are looking at, and that is giving us serious pains. So these are areas that our government and the society at large can come in and support.
All right, 8 minutes to 1 in the city of Lagos. The station is Unilag 103.1 FM. My name is Adebola Adedwa. Today, my focus is understanding Down syndrome. Yes, today on Health Focus is all about the understanding Down syndrome. What's Down syndrome? How can we detect someone who has Down syndrome? How can we manage, a baby or a person that has Down syndrome? And my guest is administrator of Down Syndrome Foundation, and that's Aanu Senbanjo. Yes, she has a special education from Federal College of Education and also has a master's degree in educational psychology from the University of Lagos. Let me talk about parents out there. What's your or before I go there, highlight for me achievement irrespective of this condition, achievement of phenomenal feat some of them have achieved in spite of this condition. It could be a social achievement, it could be a social skill they learned. Tell me about them.
Yes, I'm glad to talk about this.
Right.
Like we have some of our young adults, a particular one, Solomon Umere. If you go on YouTube, you can watch his video. He featured as a lead role Super Story series, Godwin, for 13 weeks episode. As a lead, he acted with Kehinde Bankole alongside Kehinde Bankole. And it's still on YouTube. Godwin, anybody can go and watch it. He's a student. He's still with us. And also some of them, we are looking at fixing them up for employment in some other organizations because they have been trained to work there. Then one of us had worked at McDonald's in the UK as the office assistant there and all that. So with their vocation, they are doing very well. One of them also is representing Nigeria in the world, Down Syndrome International. She's representing Nigeria, and she had done facilitated a webinar for the whole, it was a global thing. Wow. And she represented Nigeria, and she did it very well, talking about inclusive employment.
Wow, that's fantastic. Oh wow, that's amazing. I'm glad to hear that in spite of the condition, they can still be, great.